Hi, Carl Munson here with a bit of comeback to life communication. And of course, first question I would like to ask you is, where are you right now? Where is your awareness? Where is your being right now? I guess just asking you to watch this video or inviting you to watch this video has you focus your attention on this content. And what else is running? Thoughts, anxieties, worries, you're full, somewhat like an attention on this, but with an awareness in your body as well, ideally for me, I don't know about for you, and a relaxed easiness about watching, or just seeing actually rather than watching. Just if you're moved to watch this, great, and maybe have a relaxed focus on it, an easygoing attention awareness of what's being said. That'll be ideal as far as I'm concerned. Anyway, let's crack on with it. And the idea of the myth of the biggest picture house on the planet. And this came up in conversation last night with friends. A metaphor, a myth for what's going on in the world of human beings, certainly in our part of the world at the moment. And I propose that we have a planet, or something that appears to be a planet anyway. We're on the Earth. Let's say we're on the Earth, and that's why I think it's lovely that I've got this visual going on that you're looking at. You don't have to look at me. You can look at the beauty of semi-nature. I'm going to say semi-nature because I think this is basically a plantation of eucalyptus and pine trees, but it's pretty natural compared to being in a house or shopping centre or workplace or something like that. It's quite natural, isn't it? Quite natural. And let's imagine with this myth that much of the world is in this kind of condition of freedom, nature, openness. And people have built some dwellings, obviously, to take refuge from the extremes of this situation. Maybe they've cut down a few of these trees to make shelters or make fire. And somebody comes up with this idea, maybe looking at the flames of the fire one night, that, wouldn't it be amazing to have moving pictures of our own lives? And so, of course, the first movie is made and a building is made, trees are cut down, and movies are made recording reality and real life and representing it within an abstracted place, building. And people quite like it because I suppose on one level it's a break from the harshness of their lives of keeping warm and sheltered in the natural environment, so they can get inside this cinema, which is because it's getting more and more popular. More and more people seem to like it and go along, and the owners of it have more resources because of the resources they're taking from the people who want to watch the movies and keep warm. And it grows, and the cinema gets bigger and bigger until some years later, the cinema, the movie house, the movie theatre is so big, it pretty much covers the whole of the planet, the former environment. And there's just a tiny little bit left of this environment outside by way of a contrast to what's going on inside the cinema, in which people live their entire lives. They don't just go to the cinema once a week, twice a week, twice a day. They live there. They've become so attracted and used to it that they actually live in there all the time. And as far as this question, given that we're in this year of 2024, it's been called 2024, isn't it? And people are saying, oh, it's going to be an exciting year, this. I remember this from 2012, of course. And then you say to other people, oh, no, actually, 2027 is when it's going to get really interesting. Suffice to say that the civilization in which most of us find ourselves, who might be listening to this message, is on a trend. And it's on a trend of uncertainty, and one might say a collapse or evolution. In a sort of more neutral way, it's changing, and it's changing in a way that reflects the unsustainable nature of its design. And that is the metaphor. That's the culture we live in, is like this great big superimposed cinema, movie theatre, on top of the original situation for human beings. Nature has given way to a mediated, manufactured view of everything in which people live, and that's certainly how it occurs to me. And I'll give you an example. I'm concerned at the moment about the number of excess deaths that seem to be being reported in certain places in these times. Let's just say in these times. I live in Portugal, and in this year, apparently we have 700 or thereabouts additional deaths to what people would normally expect at this time of year. And I've made the point publicly, and I thought there would be a much bigger reaction to this. And I'll come back to the biggest picture house metaphor myth in just a moment. I thought there'd be a bigger interest in why it is all these extra people are dying more than they would be ordinarily. And how, if you recall, a few years back, when we were concerned that people were going to be dying in some sort of viral, contagious situation, an epidemic, that we shut society down and we wore masks and a vaccination was created. All sorts of measures were brought forth we were told to stay in our houses and stay away from each other through fear of death. Now, the death is happening now in a what you might call an epidemic proportion, but no, there's no obvious public health concern about that, or widespread anyway. I know some people are concerned about it, but generally speaking, it's you can't trust one source. The things actually that were being said in 2020, you don't want to take your it's a conspiracy theory, or you don't want to take your information from one source. And of course, the hospitals have been under strain, so obviously you've got to expect a few more extra deaths now. And fair enough, any of those things might be true, but it surprises me, and it shouldn't really, should it? It surprises me that there's no widespread conversation or concern about this. Maybe people are sick of it, I don't know. But that's taking place inside the cinema. And what for me is more important is, if things are going to start changing, and for some people they're going to start changing drastically, is their prediction, catastrophically, collapse style of the current civilization, and others are hoping for a more perhaps measured transformation and change of direction. That to me is the most, what's the word? I guess what stays with me, what is meaningful to me, is whether or not the conversation is taking inside or outside this great big picture house that has now enveloped all of human awareness. And there may be a few little windows around, and there may be people banging on the window saying, come out, it's really real outside here. Do you remember it used to be fantastic outside the picture house? Do you remember before you lived in there, before your children were born in there and your grandchildren were born in there, there's this other world outside. And some people are saying, God, someone banging on the window. I can't listen to my film while that's going on. Shut the window. Get security to get rid of that person banging on the window. And now as well, there are people inside the cinema possibly saying, hey, there's this going on and there's that going on. And mainly, I think, people in the cinema are saying, shut up. We're trying to watch the movie here. Shut up. You're ruining our fun. We're trying to just, enjoy ourselves in the cinema. And what you're saying has got nothing to do with what's on the screen at the moment or what we've been told in previous films that we've been watching in here. So it may be that the atmosphere in the cinema is changing a little bit, and that more security is needed to shut people up so that other people can watch the film in comfort and without interruption. And it seems to me that is going on mythically, metaphorically. And for those who, I think, I don't know, what would they be called? The remnant, the people who have some concern about how to be prepared in this time, the great uncertainty, the anxiety possibly of these times. Or I'll tell you what I'm planning to do, and that is to, first of all, recognise that all of us live inside and outside the cinema. It's so prevalent and pervasive now, this way of life, that we are smart, intelligent to acknowledge that it's so prevalent and dominating that we both live inside and outside of the cinema. Well, some people live entirely inside the cinema, or it would appear to, and some people at great expense to themselves and their sanity, you might say, live outside the cinema. most people, I would say, in the great majority of people, live a lot of the time in the cinema and have occasional glimpses of life or memories, flashbacks, you might say. They're watching the movie that's being presented, the approved version of life, and they're getting a flashback of something. And it might even not even be in their own experience. It might just be a flashback within the common consciousness, the collective consciousness, that or instinct. You might call it instinct. These seats are nice, these drinks are nice, the popcorn's nice, the movie's nice, the movie's engaging and entertaining. But there must be more to this. They're feeling an instinct, the call of the wild, if you like, at the moment. And I think that's all of us to some measure or other. And it would appear to me, to stay sane, it may be useful to have an awareness of being outside, honor the outside of the cinema, even whilst you have to stay inside there and watch the movies that you're not enjoying anymore, that are not ennobling or edifying to you. But that's what's happened. We went in that direction. We now live in the biggest picture house on earth. It mostly has taken up all of the earth, and to varying degrees people are lapping that up or being more or less uncomfortable with it. And I think it's very important to acknowledge that we live, because it's so pervasive and so prevalent and so all-consuming, that each of us has a life in and out of the cinema potentially, and to be kind to us and to the others who live inside the cinema, and hold a lamp, be a torchbearer, so that when anyone's ready to leave the cinema, you have a torch like the old days. I mean, some people won't even remember this, but there was a day when you had someone with a torch showing you to your seat and maybe showing you back out of the cinema if you needed to go to the toilet or leave the cinema early. And there are exit signs, aren't there? There are emergency exits, and maybe we're in the time of keeping an eye on the emergency exit of the biggest picture house on earth, and waiting. Because I heard recently something that made a lot of sense to me, and something I've already alluded to, is that we all know what's going to happen. We just don't know when. And we get a greater and lesser sense, don't we? We can get quite emotional about it and hope that it happens sooner rather than later, just to burst the blister. But it will happen when it happens. And it would appear we can agree that nothing stays the same. No empire, civilization, or each civilization and empire carries within itself the seeds of its own destruction, and they all rise and they all fall. And we are perhaps in a downward part of that trajectory of a civilization, for those of us in that civilization and identified with it. And that's going in a certain direction, and we can only imagine what's going to happen and specifically the detail of that. Yet we know it is going in that direction, and it's only a matter of time, and it's quite useful to be prepared in some way. So welcome to the greatest picture house on earth, and thank you if you're one of those people who can recognize. I take great comfort in knowing that there might be other people who have a torch in their hand, or who have tried to look in the window and say, come out. It's nice outside here. You remember, don't you? I see you. I salute you. And let's just see what happens, shall we?